Good evening. Welcome to everyone that's signed in from all over the world. Again, we've got people signing in from the UAE and the Far East, which is great, and obviously all around the UK. So welcome. We've had a few weeks off rugby union, but we're back this evening with Scotland international Bryan Redpath and his son, who has played for Scotland under 16s, but also played England 18s, 20s, and was selected on the South Africa tour with Eddie Jones whilst he was still at school. And also we've got here Jason Duffy, the head of Sedbergh School Development Summer Schools, to ask the questions with me. So welcome all.
Good evening, mate.
Jason, you're on first.
Yeah, I'll get cracking, no problem. Cam, great to see you. You're looking trim and well. How's training going for you at the minute? What are you up to in coronavirus? How are you keeping fit and strong?
I'm obviously with Bath at the minute. So obviously not down there. Came back up north to spend lockdown, and we're just doing simple things really. It's just fitness here and there, gym stuff. They've given us a load of equipment, so we're just doing home workouts in the garden with Dad, putting him through his paces for once. And my little brother as well, he's doing them as well. So it's not too bad. We've got on a normal week, it's probably 3-4 sessions a week. So, 2 lowers, 2 uppers, 2 running, or 3 running, or 4 running. It just depends on the week. And at the minute, we're in like a regeneration week. So it's only 2 sessions this week. So it's been pretty good game.
Everybody listening in wants to know who's the fittest. Who's the fittest Redpath? Who's leading the sprints?
To be honest, Murray's probably the fittest running wise. Since he's done his fell running, Sponge got him into it. He's probably the fittest in the running, but I'd take top spot in the gym.
Well, good man. Keep it that way.
He's not got the mobility in his shoulders. He can't do it. So
they're all gone. He's had all his RoboCop surgery.
You have to hand the mantle over sometime, Jason. No.
Just keep a little grip on it for now, Bryan. Can give us an overview of your sort of early memories of rugby, sort of the start, middle, and now.
So started when I was about 4, just at the local rugby club in Knutsford. So when Dad was at Sale, I was only about a year, I reckon, there, or maybe 2. I'm not really sure, but I can't remember really much from that. I've got a few photos. That's all I remember from that. But I'm sure that was just kicking a ball about and kind of running in my boxes and no t-shirt or anything. I don't even know. Then we moved down south to Cheltenham because of Dad with Gloucester, and I started playing at Cheltenham Tigers. I used to do that as well as football on a Sunday, and so rugby on a Saturday, football on a Sunday, or rugby on a Sunday morning, football on a Sunday afternoon. I must have done that until year 7, so maybe how old was that? Like 12, I think. I don't know. Then moved back up north. My last year in Cheltenham, I was at Cheltenham College on a scholarship there, playing rugby there so it's like similar to Sedbergh. They play like year 7 and 8 play together. So I did that. Then moved up north, went to Kings Maxfield. Didn't actually play for a rugby club, just played football at the weekends, but just played at Kings every Saturday morning. And loved that there. Year 10, I kind of stopped playing as much football just because rugby was coming a bit more serious, and playing at the Sale under 15, 16 stuff. Did like Kings Mac and stuff like that as well. And I also, in year 10, I played under 16s for Scotland. So that was my first kind of part of international rugby. So I was an under 15 playing up a year. Then year 11, so I was 16. I played Sale under 18s all of that year. And was actually meant to go and play with Scotland under 18s, but dislocated my shoulder playing for Kings. A couple of times, and I didn't really realise because it was like not fully out. It kind of like subluxed a little bit. So stupidly, as I've done a couple of times, carried on, pulled it through an injury, and made it worse and had to have surgery. Then summer of that, I went to Sedbergh, obviously that's when my rugby kind of properly kicked on. I think for me, came into all the England stuff, so the England 17s and 18s stuff in my lower 6th year, upper 6th year. So in between that summer, I went to South Africa with England 18s, and also went to New Zealand with school, which was a whole summer. It was 6 weeks away for me. It was unreal, to be fair. Then came back to Sedbergh in my upper 6th year as captain, which was obviously really good, and I loved every moment of it. Played for the school. We got like a very, very good season. We came, unbeaten season, and Roslyn Park winners and Sedbergh 10s winners as well. And then that was when the England tour with to South Africa happened. I didn't actually go on it because I did my ACL in my knee. And then I signed with Sale. In my upper sixth year, I actually played a couple of games for Sale. Then, carried on 2 years, a year and a half at Sale. And then moved to Bath in March. Just, I've had a lot of injuries, and I feel like it was the right thing for me to do, just get a fresh start somewhere else in a new environment, completely away from Manchester in a sense. Now I'm at Bath, and I'm enjoying it. I've only been there 3 weeks, and coronavirus happened, so not really done too much there. So yeah.
Mate, you've had some amazing experiences, and we'll dig deeper in a few of them later on. But I'm really intrigued as to when you were sort of younger, growing up, and the psychology around you playing and performing. So you're always in these elite environments. Did you ever feel any sort of pressure around Dad being sort of really well established, international captain, star in the Premiership? Did you ever feel or carry any weight on your shoulders because of that?
Not massively. It was more people, from when I was like 16. Obviously, I was like very skinny, and I could, I was more like I didn't have a pass. So some parents maybe got quite annoyed that their kid didn't get much of the ball because I'd just be hogging it the whole time. So it was more for me. It wasn't really pressure, but it was more just proving people wrong, because not a lot, but a few people did say, "Oh, you're here because your dad," or I don't know. Some people say it as a joke, but some people mean it, and they do say it. And with social media nowadays, a lot of people go, "Oh, your dad's this. You're only there because your dad," or especially with the Scotland-England stuff. There was a lot of that stuff going on, and people going, "Oh, you're a traitor to Scotland," and things like that. But from the family point of view, there's never really been any pressure there. Obviously, my mum and dad and my brother and my sister have always been very supportive, and yeah, they've always just said, just enjoy your rugby and you'll play the best rugby you can. And I feel like I did that throughout my whole school career. I just enjoyed what I was doing, didn't get too caught up in who was talking to me about what I was playing for. I just kind of played my rugby. If I made an error, it doesn't really matter. You go to do something else. So no, not really. There wasn't any pressure really. I just, as I said, enjoyed my playing rugby.
Good man. You have got a super supportive family and talented. So there's obviously lessons moving down the tree, sort of from Dad to yourself to Murray from a rugby perspective. What's your relationship like with Murray in that respect? Do you egg each other on? Do you support each other? Is there a bit of both?
Obviously, I think any time that something good happens or something bad happens, we've always got each other's back. But any brothers doing, kicking in the garden, it ends up, a competition in a sense. And he's a better passer than me, so he beats me on that. So I've got to beat him at something. So it's just he's good with it all, and he loves his rugby just as much as I do. So whenever I've got a chance to kind of push his head in the ground and show him his boss, I try to do that.
Hey, I'm one of 3 brothers. We still do WrestleMania every time we go around to Mum and Dad's back garden.
Yeah,
and I still come last. Mate, we just talked about all the different experiences. You'd have been really lucky to have had some amazing coaches, but what coaches or who really struck a chord with you, and how did they get the best out of you, and why?
So there's a couple here. I think obviously the first one would have to be John Fletcher, just because of, I think he just allowed me to go out, and he made it very clear that I could go out and play my rugby, and if I made an error, it doesn't really matter. Like, you learn from that. And he, at the time, I used to find it quite annoying, but he used to put me in different positions and ask me a lot of questions. Like, if I asked him a question, he'd come back with a question, so I'd be like, "Wait a second, I've just asked you, and you're asking me." So it was like that a lot. But I probably feel like that's been really good for me. And I think when I build a good relationship with a coach, I always get the best out of myself, and they get the best out of me, just because of they understand me, and they understand that I like to be challenged, and I don't mind making an error here and there. And then obviously, I think probably the biggest one, and a couple at Sedbergh. There's obviously the biggest one would probably be Noxie, Sam Mulholland, just purely because backs coach, got on really well with him, and I felt like I could talk to him about rugby for hours and hours. obviously, Stuart Oliver was my housemaster as well, so he'd always punch me in the ribs before, get me to go to training, get me to go to the gym. So he's been massive as well. But to be honest, everyone at Sedbergh was good. But I've got to give it to Sam Mulholland. I think he was probably the biggest out of my whole career, other than Dad. He was probably the biggest at just understanding me and just completely knowing what's right and wrong for me on a rugby pitch. So he knew if something was wrong, he knew if something was right. He gave me freedom to play, gave me freedom to be a captain and understand players as well, which I think is really important.
Yeah, Noxie, I say Noxie's one of the best coaches I've ever met and best people that I've ever met. But apart from his sort of character, I can't tell you why he's so good. He's just got it. It's a natural knack. But talking of challenges, Fletch always tells me the story about he had you in a Target shirt in training. Yeah. And it was sort of like if Cam got man and balled, if he got caught with a ball in his hand, then it'd be a turnover. He said you used to just love it, just getting straight back in the mix. And
he always used to do it. It was like a couple of us that he used to pick on and just get us to do it all the time. And I'd always early on, I used to get frustrated because I'd be like, why is it always me? And then I'd do it and I'd get touched and then I'd be like, oh, for God's sake, another turnover, another bad play, another do this, another that. And then I started to you learn from it a little bit and you find ways to get away from that. And that's where Fletch was really good. And, all those England 18s coaches, you got Rusty, and Waltz as well, who were both really good as well. So I think that England 18 stuff, I think that helped me a lot, as well as Noxie at Sedbergh. So it was good.
Good stuff. I can't believe you put Stu in that group.
Hey, good man.
My ribs are still hurting from those mornings.
Gotta get you out of bed. Training. Brushy, good evening.
Hi, how you doing?
Yeah, all right. We've heard about these kind of elite environments that Cameron's been in from a young lad. That was obviously different for you. Can you talk us through your journey as a young lad to how you made it in the professional game?
Yeah, I think when I first started out, I was born and bred in a little village in, in the Scottish borders, and rugby was a religion. Everybody played rugby. It didn't matter if you were good or bad. Everybody played, and we just played in the local park. And we would play 7-a-sides initially. It was always 7-a-side rugby, and then it was really till about 10 we started playing 15s, and then that was in St Boswell's. And I went to school at Kelso because my older brothers went to school there, and then played for Kelso, and then. In that time, we were in the central little village called St Boswell's, which is in between Melrose and Kelso. And with the Scottish borders being a big hotbed, it was my older brother went to Melrose, and then my middle brother Craig followed, and then I followed, even though we all played school rugby at Kelso. And we were successful then, and then I played Scotland under 15s, Scotland under 18s, and in that time I was very fortunate at Melrose, where we had a load of talented players with Craig Chalmers, Graham Shield, Doddy Weir, Carl Hogg. Both my middle brother Craig was involved with Scotland age groups, Andrew, my oldest brother. So we had a really strong network of players that came through. And I left school at 15, 16. I went straight onto the building site and done my apprenticeship. Because, as I said, rugby was never professional then, so everybody had a job. Got picked to play for Melrose as an 18-year-old with my brothers in the same team, which was always good. And then played 18s, 20s with 21s actually with Scotland. And then 1993, I got picked to my first international cap. So that was against New Zealand. I played against them on the Wednesday for the Scottish borders, for the south of Scotland. And then on the Saturday, I played for Scotland A against New Zealand again. And then on the Sunday, I got picked to sit. I was on the bench for Scotland the following Saturday. So within 10 days, I'd faced New Zealand 3 times and been beaten by about 150 points to very little. But that was a great experience, obviously. I think also growing up, and I think Cam obviously alluded to it earlier, I played cricket in the summer. I played pub league football and kids football right up until I was 20, I think.
It's because he looked like a kid the whole time.
But it was golfing, cricket, tennis, football. I think that was really important from all ages playing. That was something that we all learned, and rugby was the hotbed of it all. But we all still played multi-sports as much as we could, and we didn't get too focused just on that at that time. When I was young, up until about 17, I think I was playing multi-sports for as much as I could. And then obviously, just, I was very fortunate to be in and around a team at Melrose that won, in the 7-8 years that I was involved in the first team, we were champions in 5-6 years, won the Border League, won Melrose Sevens twice, back to back. So we trained Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday as amateurs and played on a Saturday. So what we did as amateurs, because Jim Telfer was my coach at the club rugby, he encouraged us to train really hard, but always with our mates. So it encouraged boys that weren't the best as well.
Absolutely. Can I just go back to that multi-sport? I was on with, I'm name dropping now, but I was on a call with Phil Neville last week, and he said that the kids now, footballers, are now specialised from age 11, and they are focused purely on football. The elite ones from 11 years old. So much so that they're pulled out of PE lessons in school. And obviously, you've just said there the importance of multi-sport, which absolutely, completely agree with. We do multi-sport here through Sedbergh throughout. But what age do you think that the kids should specialise in a sport?
Well, I think you can specialise, for as long as you want. I think it's a character that it changes you, and I think that's really important. And when you're young, you may be the best at the rugby team, you may be the best golfer, but you may not be the best cricketer, you may not be the best footballer. So you may have to play in a second team, you may have to be a replacement in another team. So when you bring that back to your rugby environment where you are the elite one, you understand a little bit more about the guys that don't always play, or it's really good for your character, because when you get to the top level, you do get dropped and you do get left out and you do find some tough times. And then when you get these tough times, you tend to remember back to when you were the rubbish striker in the football team, or the crap bowler, or the crap batter in the cricket team. And you remember the times, so that enables you to deal with the bad times. If you get taken away and put in the pedestal, there's always going to be someone either above you or in the opposition team or younger chasing you as an elite environment. So if you don't cope with that mentally, that's the one thing that bites you in the backside a little bit and makes you, if you find it hard to deal with that mechanism of rejection and failure or not being selected. So I think that the longer you can play multi-sports for your own mind is really, really important. I think it's a great release when you're in professional sport. It's a great opportunity to go and play golf, go and have a game of cricket with some lads that are different from that same group. But then when you go back, you actually have a bit more of a drive, and you say, right, I'm going to really focus on that, and I'm going to understand that I don't want to be in that position too often. So I think multi-sports can play football at West Brom for 2 seasons, and I remember going up there and watching him struggle in the training ground there, when there was all these other kids that were so obsessed by football and didn't really want the physicality that Cam wanted. I remember watching him being frustrated and making the decision to change from playing West Brom Academy to actually, all right, I'm not going to play football anymore at that level, Dad, because I don't enjoy it. So it's a big carrot to throw away, and you've got to be happy when you do it.
Absolutely. I completely agree. Although I did have to stop Cameron playing house football the week Eddie Jones selected you to go to South Africa. Do you remember? Yeah. You sulked because I dragged you off.
Because Bevan and me were going at it.
Yeah, you don't want to fight with a prop. Anyway, Bryan, you finished off in playing your rugby in France. I think, in fact, Cameron was born in France. What were your experiences out there, and how does that differ to the rugby you played in the UK?
Yeah, after the World Cup in '99, I had an approach from a guy called Pierre Babizier. He used to play for France and scrum half and was the coach. And I'd done 10 years senior rugby by then in '99, so I'd played, in Scotland for 10 years, and I was thinking, not for the national team, but in senior rugby, and I thought I can travel the world, and as a professional, I may as well do it. My wife Jo was exceptionally good at just up in sticks and leaving. Cam was born obviously across there, and we had a great time there. And I would encourage it for as many people as they can to go and experience that different language. Speaking French and trying to call line-out calls was difficult enough in English, let alone in French. But But the whole culture was just outstanding. And I ended up finishing back at Sale, but the big decision for me in that time was, do I put my Scotland career at an end? I had 40 odd caps by then when I went to France, and I hadn't finished in my terms. So Brian Kennedy, who bought Sale Sharks, who I knew 2 years prior to that, encouraged me to leave and come and follow a dream. He wanted to win the Premiership in 5 years, and we won it in 6 years. And I, myself, Jason Robinson, Paulo Perolini were the first 3 signings in that era to come and join. And I was sad in some ways of leaving France. I wish I'd stayed longer than the 18 months I did. I think I probably could have still been there now, I think, if I'd stayed and done that, because I really enjoyed the challenge. The way the Nines were playing in France was very, you were called the Petit General, and you were the main man. And that was great to be around these big French forwards that never let anybody touch you if they could. And if it did, there was a massive fight and they were all in for you. So it was great fun. But, it was a great learning experience for us all as a family. And it was great to finish the career at Sale as it was, and taking Sale in a way and being part of that group that were 10th in the league to winning it and being consistently top 4 the last 3 years was a wonderful achievement. And to see them lift a trophy in 2006 was special.
Yeah, no, I bet. And staying, we'll come back to your coaching later, but who, as a player, who got the most out of you as a player, whether it's a fellow player or a coach? I'd have to say Jim Telfer, Rob Moffat were 2 Melrose coaches. They were probably, very extremely different. Jim was, such a hard-nosed, very, very honest, but, we trained crazy for amateurs in the day, but he was someone that was like that himself, and he felt that was the best way to get people to always think about the team. It was never about an individual. He was never interested in any superstars. It was all about the club players. It was all about us training together. It was about the second team on the banking. The seconds forwards would scrum downhill, and the first team forwards would have to scrum uphill. And that was on the hit and everything. And it was just the way it was. And if it was live rucking, and sometimes had to take our boots off because he didn't want people getting stitches, so we'd have to do it in our bare feet, and your socks would be about this long, and it'd be slapping people in the face, and it was just crazy. Winter time, we'd train in the snow. Sundays we'd train after playing an international game, so I'd play a test match on a Saturday. I'd drive back down to Melrose on a Sunday, and I'd have to do 6 2-minute runs to start off. Then we'd do live contact work for about an hour, and we'd have to finish before the church came out because Jim was bad with his language. So when he was shouting at us, so we had to, it was all about the club players. And I think Jim was just somebody that, he played for Scotland, captain Scotland. So he'd captained Melrose all his career in his 18 years. So for me, he was the ultimate, I was always trying to get his respect, even though he was the one coach that told me I'd never play for Scotland. At the age of 14, I would be too small. So he said, no, he'll never play. He'll never play senior, top level. So from that day on, he was always the one that I was firing at. He was always the chip on my shoulder to go and get him and sit on a bus in 2003 after we just lost the quarter-final to Australia. And it was his last game. And I remember saying to him, look, Jim, you remember that 20 years ago, whatever it was at that time, 15 years ago at that time, you said I would never do this, and he was like, look, I picked you 60 times, I got it wrong, didn't I, sort of thing. So, that was a great time for me. And as I say, Rob Moffat was very much like Stuart, like Simon, so positive of everything we did, and with Jim that scream and shout, and another coach that would be supporting everybody and a bit more gentle and a bit more, shoulder to cry on when Jim would be swearing at you. So, I was very lucky. I had some great players that I played alongside as well, and in my club time with Craig Chalmers, and my older brothers were great to play with and learn from, and the boys that are not fortunate to play professional when I was, and to the undertakers, the lorry drivers, the plumbers, the brickies, the accountants, whoever it was that used to come and watch me in internationals, and then I'd go back and train with them the next day, was just as important for me. No, absolutely. Well, you've had a hell of a career, including 3 World Cups and obviously international captain. What, as a player, what's been the biggest highlight for you?
I think probably 2002. I think 95. in '96 we went for Grand Slams against England, both games. Strangely enough, they both landed on the last game of the season. So we had Grand Slam decided at Twickenham in '95. We lost 18-12, and then we had a Grand Slam decided the year after. So they were huge because Braveheart was around in '96 and all that. It was just crazy times and an old enemy and you know, there was a lot of hatred, even though the players actually didn't hate each other too much, apart from I saw Jason Leonard do a straight arm on Rob Wainwright and knock him out clean in the game, and he was like, I didn't mean to, and I'm like, nowadays he's like, yeah, I did, I meant everything. So it was funny, but they were great games. '95 World Cup, meeting Nelson Mandela was special, just because of his lifestyle and how he had been and how influential he was, and then to be part of that World Cup and then winning, just coming back from the apartheid was special. But then probably 2002 when we beat South Africa, we hadn't beaten them in 33 years, and I was captain that year, and we beat them 21-6, and it was a wet day, but we had just been really clinical in everything we'd done in training and what we had stuck to, and we'd had a few beers on the Wednesday night as well, which was really exact. Well, it was. I asked Jim Telfer and Ian McGeechan if I could do it, if I could let the guys relax a little bit. We'd had a tough game against somebody the week before and not played particularly well, and the media were on our case because we were playing South Africa and Fiji. But yeah, that was special that day, just because we all dug in, and there was some special times in that game where we were up against it because they were a very big team. And then my last game, I was captain in the World Cup against Australia in 2003. That's all I knew. It was obviously I'd planned to retire for 6 months, so that was special for me, and tough to leave. Emotionally tough, but with great memories and World Cups and yeah, all of it. Just the boys that you leave behind that you still catch up with now in other countries that I still speak with, and the friends you make in the rugby world are second to none, and it has been great to keep in touch with so many of them.
No, absolutely. Obviously, now you can relive it again as a parent through Cameron. Who knows? Jason, back to you.
I just have to unmute myself first. There's just a couple of questions here, just on the question bar. I think this one's for you, Cam, from Piers Burton in Dubai. As such a young player, how did you find the senior players treated you in the build-up to the South Africa tour, so when you were picked for the senior team?
Yeah, pretty good. No one really kind of treated me any different, really. Yeah, they just treated me just like a normal player, like one of them. One of them who hadn't played, that was it, really. Just, yeah, it was actually normal. They were really good. I spoke to a lot of them prior, because I had been to a few camps here and there. So I had spoken to a couple of them. Like Danny Sedbergh was at Sale when Dad was at Sale coaching. So I used to go in when I was like 15 to go and watch training and end up doing some kicking with him at the end of the session. So I briefly knew him. So I chat to him. I roomed with George Ford one of the times. So from the first camp, when I was in a room with him, he was pretty good, and he was always supportive. And if I needed anything, he'd be there. And people like that, Owen Farrell, the same. All of them, they're all really good. So yeah, it was good.
Yeah, it must have helped having that contact with them pre-camp and getting your feet under the table. Yeah. I won't read out Lucia's first question, Brushy, because that's a difficult one. But a really good question from Luch is around what's been a really pivotal learning experience for you both. Is there one moment that sticks out so far? I think actually I've learned quite a lot from that moment.
No, not really. I think that there was probably the injury times when you have some bad injuries, and I missed 1999. I was captain in '98 for a few sort of games, and then in '99, Scotland won I had to play some club games for Edinburgh to justify my fitness and something, and I actually damaged my ankle. But I was playing Wales a week later, and I was still trying to run, but I didn't realise I'd ruptured all 3 ligaments on my ankle. So in that time, I was trying to run in the corridor, and then I actually realised that I could dislocate my ankle properly myself. And then I was thinking that I thought, oh no, there's something wrong here. And then obviously they went on to win the Six Nations that year because Wales beat England at Wembley. Scotland won, and so there was big celebrations, and I kind of missed out on all that. So for 7 years I'd been sort of in there and then desperate to do well, and suddenly Gary Armstrong got back in. So I'd gone to France and all these things. So that was I realised then that don't take anything for granted, and the injuries were going to come, but use them to try and finish off my career and go back and put my jersey on the peg in the right way rather than just wander off and not be remembered. So the injuries were the big injury in '99 was where I realised that I needed to, finish it off properly.
Do you think that's something you could pass on to Cam and Murray from a rugby perspective, or is that something that they've got to go and find out for themselves and learn for themselves?
I think a lot of them I'd done when I was younger because it was an amateur game. So I'd definitely done my ankle playing an under-18s game for Melrose, under-18s against Berwick, I think it was. But I didn't rehab it. I didn't look after it. I went out for a few beers that night. I didn't ice it. I didn't do any of the things that you're meant to do. So if there's anything that does come up for Cam and them now, I'm pretty hard to say, look, when you do get injured, listen to the physio, listen to the doctors, and you'll get a beer another night when you're fully fit again, and just really respect your body when you need to. When it's telling you there's something wrong, pay attention to it, because generally it can bite you in the longer term.
Yeah, definitely. Cam, have you got any lessons?
I think I'm similar to Dad with injuries. I think the one coming out of school was probably the biggest one for me. I think obviously expected. So obviously with such a good finish to school, to life as in rugby-wise, with such a good season with Sedbergh, and then doing my knee that year, they actually said I did it earlier in the year. So I did my ACL in the year playing for England under 17s, and I remember coming back, and I remember Stu going, right, you ready to play house rugby? We got the final on Monday. And I'll be like, Stu, have you seen my knee? It's all puffy. And I remember it.
And Eddie Jones was fine with it.
Oliver's fault.
He looked at me. He goes, all right, okay, calm. I can see it's quite swollen. Let's just leave this one. And I remember they won it anyway, I think. But I think from that day, I think my knee was a bit dodgy. And then I remember just trying to get fit for this summer tour and just kicking the ground and just mucking about, which I often did. Seemed to do it, Sedbergh. I mucked about it, getting injured. And as Stu said earlier about the house football, I used to do that, which I probably shouldn't have done. I think from that injury, I learned a lot just because of it wasn't as easy to go into men's rugby because I came straight in injured. And a lot of the older boys are like, oh, you're only 18. Why are you getting injured at this young? Why are you getting this much physio when some of the older boys who are injured and, they've got like 1 year left in the career are needing physio, and I'm like an 18-year-old just coming to the systems needing 2 massages a week or 3 massages a week or whatever. So I think I did, learn a lot about that. I've never been one for going out and drinking a lot throughout my whole life so far, at 18, 19, 20, just because I know that it does affect my injuries. And I think as I'm going on to this, I think my main point for that is actually understanding when I'm hurt instead of trying to carry on, which I do quite a lot. And I did it the year after my ACL, just because I've been out for 6 months. I thought, I can't be out again. And I remember against Worcester, my knee was swollen after the game, and I meant to go to Dad, like, Dad, my knee's killing again, the same knee. And he's like, it doesn't look right, that, Cam. And I was like, I'll be fine. And I remember playing the rest of the season until the summer, until I get my op. So, I guess for me, it's injuries as well. Just actually understanding when you're injured and understanding when to speak out and tell someone that something's not right, instead of trying to pretend that you're fine.
Yeah, it's great advice for any youngster out there or anybody playing sport to look after your body, respect it. You just touched, Stu, you'll probably agree with me here, and you'd have seen more than I have. But the end to the school career of Cam and that team around Roslyn Park and the Thames is probably the greatest sporting moment I've been able to witness, certainly in the top 3. That Roslyn Park and Thames finish was incredible. What was your memories of Roslyn Park? Of the finish, of the final and the finish.
To be honest, the final was one of those. I was actually ill the day. I kept being sick throughout the day of the second day. And I remember we lost to Harrow by a drop goal in the last play. And we were like, oh, we're knocked out. And then Noxie comes back straight after the game, like, not bothered. And we're like, sir, we just lost. What's the crack? Why are you not bothered? And he's there like, well, we've already qualified. We're the best runner-up. Just come on, boys. We can win this still. So we're there like, oh yeah, let's go. And then we went to the semi-final against Kirkham, which was obviously our biggest rivals throughout the last 5-6 years. And we beat them. And then I remember before the Kirkham game, I was sick behind the tents at Roslyn Park. And then after the Kirkham game, I was sick again. And everyone was eating, everyone was drinking, like, Lucozade to try and, because everyone's knackered. And I just didn't have anything at all. And I felt, honestly, I walked out and I remember Dad saying, and Murray even said on the live stream, I looked like a piece of paper. I was that pale. And I never really get nervous for rugby, so I wasn't nervous, but it was just, I felt sick just because I was ill that day. And I remember the final, and to be honest with you, without the people we had in the team, so we had like Rob Farah, who caught every single kick off we had from Hodges, like unreal kicking. Walshy was outstanding the whole tournament. Patworth was, just a workhorse, didn't stop at all. And he did the Wilson 2 days before it as well. So to do that, and then the tens as well, he was an animal. Charlie Graham was outstanding. Henry Foster, Tom Curtis, they were all did everything we possibly could. And in that final, we were the underdogs. Cranley had already won it the year before, and I remember Noxie and all of us just said, "We've got it now. We might as well. This is what every kid who plays sevens, and every kid who knows rugby, school rugby, talks about Roslyn Park." And I remember being year 8 at King's Mac going, "Oh, imagine winning this," and then we won it, and it just felt like it was just so, because we won it. We ended up battering them. We ended up winning by like 15 points. So it was actually a lot easier than we thought, and we were like, "Oh my God, we're actually good." The sevens, we were actually playing well. And then after that, we went home. On the way home, we went and stopped off to have a couple of beers in a service station. But not many lads actually had a beer because we were all so tired. We just felt sick and wanted to go to bed. Got back home, had a day at Sedbergh. I actually went home, had the day at home, went to Sedbergh, went to the tens, and I didn't actually play the first day of the tens, just because my legs were knackered, and I think some of the lads who hadn't played in Roslyn Park played on the first day especially. And then just remember going to the second day, not losing a game, and then because we won it the year before, we were like, we've got to win this tens as well now, lads. There's no point coming all this way to lose this at Busk. So we won that, and it was finished my rugby.
Incredible. For me on the touchline, I was just so jealous of Stuart and Noxie. They've got the best job in the world, and then both mums and dads. I was like, can I hug someone? I was just hugging doors.
No, it was very good. That was like probably my most memorable school days in rugby.
Was. I curveball you with that question, so I apologise a little bit. Talked about your time with Fletch, Rusty, and Waltz with the England stuff, and they were always talking about the game of the future and what that might look like and preparing you for it. If you could break a rule or adapt a rule or remove a rule to make the game more exciting, what would you do?
As a back, we were speaking about this before, I'd probably just say something like you're only allowed a certain amount of restarts at a scrum, or you're not allowed to pick a scrum off a free kick or a penalty, because as a back, it is very, when you're getting ready to try and play, and you're trying to play fast, you try and play on top of teams, to keep the tempo up, and then the scrum comes and then it collapses and it goes restart, and it can sometimes go 5-6 times, and that's 10-15 minutes, and you're just stood there like, oh, right. Oh, do you know what I mean? So
you're trying to have a job.
You need to get fitter, Stu. That was on.
It'd be something along those lines for me.
I'm with you. Speed it up a little bit.
Yeah,
absolutely. Nate, whilst you're at school, we talked about it a little bit earlier. You were in the most amazing schoolboy dream of being called up to the full England senior side to tour South Africa with the likelihood of playing some Test rugby. How did it all come about? And, you must have been on cloud 9.
So after Roslyn, I'd obviously been to a few England camps that year, and I'd spoke quite every so often I did speak to Richard Hill and Eddie. They did call me and stuff. But after Roslyn Park, we went to the Sedbergh Tens, and we had that dinner on I can't remember when the dinner is, but one of the nights we had the Sedbergh Tens dinner. And I remember saying to Noxie and Sponge that Eddie was going to call me that night because Richard Hill had told me, and I was like, what's he calling me about? And I didn't have a clue at this point. I was like, what is he calling me about? Dad spoke to Richard Hill prior to this and just said, Hilly was like Eddie's going to call Cam and talk to him about it. But I didn't know that. So I remember going to the dinner, and I remember speaking to Eddie in the middle of a dinner. I would have to do, go back in after this call. So he was just like, Cam, we might pick you for the tour to South Africa. And I'm just there like, you what? I'm not even playing a Prem game. Like, what's going on? I didn't obviously say that. I was like, oh, yeah, cool. That's really good. But I remember coming back to the dinner and just being like, really like, what is going on? Like, I didn't really think too much of it. And then I remember going the next morning to tell Stu and Noxie, and just said to them that Eddie called me last night and told me this. And they were like, that's brilliant. Well done. Like, well, we got fingers crossed for you and stuff. So I was just like, okay, yeah, well, I'm not going to think too much of it. I've got a Sedbergh 10s to play. I want to finish my school career well. And if I think too much of it, I'll end up doing something, trying to be too cocky or something like that. I'll try and show off. So obviously, no one knew at this point apart from me, the England coaches, Dad, Stu and Noxie. So it must have been a couple of weeks, maybe a week, 2 weeks later. And the squad was getting announced on the Thursday. And I didn't actually know it was getting announced on Thursday. Mr. Oliver came to my room and Camp, the squad's getting announced Thursday. I'm going to be awake at 6 o'clock. So the night before it, we were meant to get told, we were meant to get a phone call. And I remember every hour in prep, Stu would come down to me like, have you had a call? I went, no, not yet. Well, obviously not meant to have our phones in prep, so I got my phone that night, that one night. And I remember him just coming to me like every hour, have you got it? Have you got it? 6 in the morning, I get away, I knock on my door, and I push on my ribs, and, Cam, have you had the call yet? And I'm like, oh, let me check. No, not yet. Nothing. All morning, every hour, kept going. Breakfast must have been 3-4 times he'd asked me. Assembly, we didn't go to it. Me, Stu and Noxie all went to Noxie's office and just sat there waiting, just like, because I hadn't been told anything. I had no idea. Well, I kind of had like a rough idea that I could, but I didn't know if it was going to happen. And then on the Thursday morning, which it was like 8 o'clock, and I missed a lesson for it just because I think it was Stu's lesson, or maybe
I missed the whole day.
Yeah, it got announced on I think it came through on your phone, didn't it, Stu?
Yeah.
It came through on like Sky Sports, Cameron Redpath has been, and then I was just like, I was like, what do I do? What do I say? So I remember turning my phone off all day just because it was going mad. Going to see Mr. Harrison straight away and sorting out my exams and everything. He was like, you're not going unless you do this, and this in schoolwork. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And then, that was it really. I can't, and then obviously just training for it. Went straight away to a camp, came back, went to the social on the Saturday, Heart Social. And it was just, honestly, it was the maddest week, 2 weeks, but it was the most normal 2 weeks as well. Like everyone at school was looking at me weird on the day. But every teacher would be like, Cam, do your work. Or Cam, go to prep and get hand your phone in and stuff. It was like just normal. Which to be honest, I loved that because I didn't want to be treated any different. And I felt, I thought that because of this, people were going to look at me like, oh my God, what's he doing? You know what I mean? And I didn't want that at all. I just wanted to be normal. So I just pretended that nothing happened the whole day. And I think Mr. Oliver even said a few jokes like, Cam, we get it, you're in the England team now, but you've still got to go to lessons. And I was just like,
it's an exciting week. And we had to organise all your exams to be taken in a school in South Africa.
Yeah, and then I got injured, so we had to redo it. We had to redo it, and I remember going on my crutches up to the exam hall, making a noise, and everyone was like, shh, I was sorry.
Yeah, brilliant.
But no, it was good.
That's incredible. Stu, over to you, dude. Thanks, Cam.
Yeah, I'll go back to you, Brushy. I was just thinking earlier, we're talking about talented families, and you got Cameron, you've also got Murray, bless him, he was selected to play against England, but the coronavirus prevented him from getting his cap. So you're a talented family, but I reckon I could pick a very good team of 18-year-olds to 22-year-olds with famous rugby playing dads. I've just the Redpath, Hastings, Umanga is now his dad's a great player. Slight Home. The standoff for Northampton, what's his name? Yeah. We've obviously got Tupoloto here and Curtis and Schofield. How is this all coming about with these talented boys? Is it savvy dads that know what to do, send them to the best schools? Is it genetics? Well, you'll probably say it's genetic. Or is it just positive? Yeah. Is it just positive role modelling for young boys? What do you think I think
they're up to the environment they grew up in. A rugby ball in the hand is very, very natural for them. I think everything around how you eat, just everything you do, exercise is paramount, and then, your diet and just loads of things in it, I think. And again, as I go back to, do multi-sports, keeps them rounded. It makes them appreciate if they actually really want to play rugby, how hard it can be. But as you said, there's so many. I think there's always been a generations, in the Calders in the past, or the Brewsters, and if I'm looking at the Scottish point of view, Gavin and Scott Hastings. And I just think it's the young ones coming through now can see a different life in it all as well. There's definitely there's a living in it. It's a professional life now. You can earn an excessive amount of money, in rugby terms, not necessarily in sporting terms when you look at the other sports, but you can have a great life. But I do think there's I was educating Cam or helping Cam on some of the things and seeing things that he'd be doing maybe a little bit quicker than maybe another parent would, because they haven't experienced the same levels. It doesn't mean that what they see is wrong or not valuable. It's just I see the things happening prior to them actually unfolding sometimes. So whether that's passing or kicking.
I still never listened though.
Yeah. Yeah, we still have a few arguments, but I think in general, it's just you give them a head start on quite a few things, how they're seen, how they listen to coaches, what advice they take, how respectful they should be. And you can do all that. Everybody does it, but I didn't really get too carried away sometimes with Cam doing well. And I'd be the first one to give him a slap until he came big enough that I could reach. Then I just had to accept that, it's too tall for me now. But I think in general, I think it's just the continuous understanding of being a professional sportsman's son or daughter, that they do have a little bit of an inbred mindset, I think. As I said, so it helps some, and it can be a hindrance to others as well. I think it can go the exact other way.
Yeah, sure.
It's not easy. It's not easy for them, as Cam alluded to earlier. There's some people there that have said stuff to me, and whether that's been, in the international stuff because of my situation with Scotland and Cam choosing England, there's been comments made that I've not necessarily liked, and I think it's wrong, and I would never, he knows I want to play for Scotland all the time, but he also understands if he wants to play for England, that's Cam's choice, and I'll always support him as a son and a dad and a lad.
And that's going to happen as long as Cam's playing rugby at this level. You're going to have this now for the next 10, 15 years. You're such a big Scottish rugby name. If Cam gets capped for the full England team, they're always going to make those comparisons.
Yeah, they will. And that's just, that's just part and parcel of it. I think people, deal with it far better now because as players move to and fro a little bit more. The Moriartys that was, Zach Mercer played Scotland 18s, Moriarty played England 20s, now playing for the full England team. Martin Johnston played New Zealand 18s and then played for England 20s, 21s. So, these things happen. They've been going on. It just hasn't been highlighted as much. And now, because of Cam being young and stuff, and I was still in the game. I think if I was out the game, I think at that time, it may not have been as big a deal for some people, but the fact that I was still coaching when Cam was, around that environment with the 20s at Scotland, and then Cam was potentially going to be 20s with England, and we were playing England in the group stages, it was going to be an interesting time. There's definitely a few conversations had in that morning.
Yeah, indeed. There's a question on here from Dick and Wood for you, Bryan. Was there a young player that you've either played with or coached with who stood out as an outstanding talent but then didn't progress? And if so, why?
I think it's very hard to say of anyone in particular, but I think there's a lot of talented players out there. I think everyone has talent, but not everyone has got the resilience to stay with it. It isn't necessarily in a team sport who's the most talented. It's about who can function in that team the best and who can understand his teammates, and is he willing to be understood from his teammates and understand them and work with them. There's been hugely talented players that's gone in all their eras, and there always is talented kids out there. Some of them are talented for younger because they're bigger and stronger, and then that cycle gets caught up. Some of them don't like the physicality. Some of them don't get any quicker. Some of them get bad injuries. So, there's many things. I think everyone is born with some talent. It's just what area and what team you're in and what opportunities you get. The school could be one of them. The academy that you go to could be one of them. The philosophy of the senior team could be one of them. So the opportunities that come for you, going through my years at Sale, the youngsters like Charlie Hodgson, Mark Quakes, Andy Titteros, Chris Jones, Jason, Chris Leck, all getting opportunities, but some of them didn't get as many as others. Why did Jason not get as many as Charlie did? And, you can look at all these things. I don't think it's just one thing. There's many little facets attached to that. But I don't think talent's the main ingredient.
No. Interesting. You've gone on and coached for several teams at a really high level, and you just mentioned about coaching the Scotland 20s. But you made that decision to leave Leeds and then jump into industry, into business. You still get offers all the time. Have you got any regrets? Because you're still relatively young. Have you got any regrets? Are we going to see you back on the coaching dugout anytime soon?
No, I don't think so. I enjoyed every place I was at. I loved Gloucester the 7 years I was there. We won the league twice in that time, and twice we lost in the semi-finals. So we're out of the 7 years, we had 5 top 4 finishes. Finished twice first, and then lost in the final, lost in the semi-final, lost in Europe quarter-finals. So it was great. And then to come back to Sale, and even though there was a difficult start to the Sale time, it was still, there was some special days in there. We beat Exeter when it was a crucial time in the season when we'd lost 7 games, and then we won, I think, 7 out of the last 11 to stay up when no team had won, had stayed after being bottom at Christmas. Getting an LV final with Sale again, just little things like that. And Yorkshire was great experience with Ian McGeechan again and Chris Gibson and a few others. So it was good fun, but there comes a time where other opportunities arise, and obviously try to spend some time with the family, and Amy and Cameron and Murray, try to watch them grow up was probably never going to happen. It was always going to be through a laptop if I was still coaching. And I think I'd missed a lot of their upbringings anyway. So 25 years, or 23 years professional, and then obviously the previous 3 years as an amateur playing for Scotland. I think I'd done a good stint to the game, and I really enjoyed the 20s with Scotland. I thought it was great, and a great bit of fresh air and young lads, and made loads of mistakes, but we had a great win against Ireland to go my guarantees getting to the next year's competition when we had lost in the Six Nations. We lost prior to it, and they were outstanding when the pressure was on that day, and I absolutely loved it. It was great fun. And I think there's times where the youngsters is great because you take away a lot of the pressure of it all and just try and help them, educate them a little bit better. But on a whole, I'm happy now. I've had a great career in many ways, and I just want to try and enjoy watching the kids play without any real long-term injury effects. I know they're going to get injured, so that's part and parcel, but I'd love them to be as successful as they want to be in any environment, whether it's international club or just socially, or university, or I still want to go along to a local club, go up to Sedbergh in the years to come and have a few pints with you and enjoy that and not necessarily worry who wins or loses.
You're always welcome. You're always welcome, Bryan. Thank you very much indeed. Cameron, I think we'll have the final word from you. We've obviously got lots of young boys and girls watching this. What advice would you give to a young 12, 13-year-old who wants to go into the professional game?
I think the main thing is understanding that when you don't enjoy your sport and your rugby, you won't play well and you won't really get the best out of yourself. I think, I think I probably enjoyed my most enjoyable rugby memories were probably in the Sedbergh days and the 20s days, because it's before you turn into a job and before you get necessarily the massive injuries that you have, and there's not as much pressure on you. So I think the main thing for me is just go and enjoy yourself, and don't feel like you're going to get in trouble if you do something wrong, because at the end of the day, you've got to learn somehow, and if you don't make any mistakes, you're never going to be any better. So the main thing for me is just go and enjoy it, make mistakes, learn from those mistakes, and then just keep playing rugby. And even if you don't want to turn professional, you play to enjoy it, because end of the day, not everyone's going to be professional, but if you enjoy playing rugby, you'll get the best out of it, and you'll enjoy the game, and you'll enjoy watching it, you'll enjoy playing it. And a lot of you probably will do very well in it if you enjoy it.
Cameron, thank you very much indeed. That's perfect advice. And listen, enjoy Bath, play well, stay safe. And me and Knox will come down and see you about Christmas time, you and the first team. Have a few beers with your dad.
I feel that. I like that.
Yeah, thank you so much for this evening. And we'll see you all soon.
Cheers. Take care.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Cheers, Em.